Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to the Mental Magic Podcast. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded my last episode, but you know what? Life got in the way and shit happens, so here we are. You may or may not know this, but this month is Suicide Prevention Month. So I do want to preface this episode with a little bit of a trigger warning. I am going to be talking a lot about suicide. It's going to be a lot of information, but I am going to start this episode with my own personal experience. So just beware that I am going to be speaking a lot about suicide. If you're not in the right mental state of mind right now to be listening to that, just be aware of that. But I do have a lot of really great information. I'm going to be giving a lot of really great resources. So if you're open to that, go ahead and keep listening. I have consistently thought about suicide since around the age of 7 or 8. I think I read a book that had suicide in it, and I recognized it immediately as a way out from pain, whether it's physical or mental. The book itself didn't come out and say it just kind of insinuated it, and I really felt it. And since then, there hasn't been a day that my brain doesn't automatically think, what the fuck am I even doing on this planet? And not in a what's my purpose type of way, more in a I don't see good things I've done and reasons why people love me, so there must be no reason type of way. No exaggeration. Every fucking day, my brain tries to convince me to do blank just to end it all. I constantly think no one will miss me, and if they do, just like everyone else I've seen die, they'll forget and move on and never think of me again. I mean, I've gotten over people's death too, right? Says the bitch who hasn't gotten over her grandma dying when she was 7, but you know, I get both sides. I get the intense feeling of wanting to escape / stop the pain / relieve the burden of my existence from others / being better, or I guess more useful as worm food. And yet I have also experienced too many people lose their battles with their brains and the devastating aftermath of sorrow and grief everyone is left with after the act is done. The reasons I've stayed have been a mix of I had no choice because the attempts clearly didn't work, and random situations, people, or pets that have intervened. But even though the attempts haven't worked and I'm still here every day battling my brain, I still choose to find joy in every day. And even though my brain tries to convince me that I don't belong here and that I'd be better off 6 feet under, I actively every day choose to fight those thoughts. And I choose to find reasons why it's better to stay. And yes, it's hard, and a lot of the time I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or if I should just listen to my brain. But so far, so good, and I am glad that I'm still here. Since this episode is inspired by Suicide Prevention Month, I did want to get it out before September ended, but I definitely don't want this month to be the last time any of us talk about suicide prevention, nor do I want it to be the only month that we focus on suicide prevention. I'm going to go ahead and share some information that hopefully will help you understand suicide a little bit better and open your eyes to how unfortunately common suicide is, specifically in the United States. Suicide rates in the US have been actively increasing, reaching record highs. In 2022, the rate was approximately 14.4 deaths per 100,000 people, which is up 36% from 2 decades ago. The demographics that are most affected tend to be middle-aged adults, particularly American Indian, Alaska Natives, and white men. The younger generation and veterans are also really vulnerable, with LGBTQ plus youth and non-Hispanic Black and Native American young people at a particularly high risk. But it is important to note that while men are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women, women report higher rates of suicide attempts. Access to firearms is also another really important factor, since they are used in over half of all suicides. There are a ton of reasons behind these statistics, one of them being the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which definitely increased social isolation, trauma, and a lot of mental health challenges. And all of these things have been proven to be major drivers to these rising suicide rates. Experts even emphasize that the US healthcare system's inability to properly address mental health needs, especially in underserved areas, makes this entire situation an increasing problem. A problem that's already really, really bad. So I think it's important to get into some myths and misconceptions that are prominent around suicide. One of the common misconceptions is that talking about suicide will actually encourage somebody to do it, when actually talking about suicide doesn't encourage it at all. It actually helps prevent it. Engaging in conversations about suicidal thoughts can actually relieve feelings of isolation and can often allow people to seek help. Studies have actually shown that asking about suicide can be super important to intervention. People also often think that people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention, and suicidal ideation is actually a serious indicator that someone is in distress. People who mention or threaten that they're going to commit suicide are genuinely in need of help, and they should never be dismissed as attention seeking. Always take their concerns seriously because it can be life-saving. There have been multiple times that I've heard people say things like, suicides happen without warning, or so-and-so killed themselves and we had no idea. While some suicides seem to be impulsive, most everyone shows warning signs, like talking about death or withdrawing from things that they normally really love to do, or really drastic mood changes. And recognizing any of these signs and intervening early is key to preventing suicides. People also think that only people with mental illnesses are suicidal, and that's not always the case. Not everyone who dies by suicide has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. Life circumstances like trauma or relationship issues or financial strain can also contribute a lot of the time to suicidal ideation or attempting or succeeding. Another thing people think is once somebody decides to end their life, that nothing can stop them. They're going to do it no matter what. Most people contemplating suicide are doing that exactly, contemplating. So with timely intervention and support, a lot of people can be helped and they can move on from that situation and live really great lives. Another really common one that I've heard is that people who survive suicide attempts weren't really serious about it. And that is extremely untrue, because a person who survives a suicide attempt is actually at an increased risk for future attempts. So it's super important that they receive professional help to address the underlying issues that are causing these ideations or attempts, and to severely reduce the risk of future ones. And then this last myth I literally have heard since I was a child. Suicide rates are highest during the holiday season, and that is actually super untrue. Suicide rates tend to peak during the spring and early summer, not during the winter holidays. Isn't that crazy? So let's move on to signs and risks. Recognizing the warning signs of suicide is super important for timely intervention. People at risk usually show behavioral, emotional, and verbal indicators, which, if you notice them early, you can provide opportunities to offer support, help, or get them in with a professional. So let's discuss some behavioral indicators. The most common behavioral indicators are withdrawal, changes in sleep patterns, giving away possessions, and engaging in risky behaviors. So when you see somebody start to withdraw, they're going to start isolating themselves from their friends and families, and specifically things that they really, really enjoy doing. This can usually manifest in avoiding like social situations or cutting off communication with people. When it comes to changes in sleeping patterns, insomnia or constant sleeping can be signs of severe emotional distress. So if you start hearing your friend or family member or somebody you know just start talking about how they're not sleeping or they're sleeping too much, it's usually a sign that something's not okay. And then sudden changes in energy levels too, like either really, really hyperactive or really, really tired all the time, can also be a big sign that there's trouble. Giving away possessions is probably the most noticeable behavior, but some people don't notice it. So if you start noticing somebody giving away their valuable belongings or making arrangements for certain affairs, it could be an indication that they're preparing to take their own life. So be very aware that if this random thing starts to happen, they start just giving away their stuff, you should probably have a talk with them. Engaging in risky behaviors can be kind of hard to notice in young adults or just youth, just because those are the time periods when people are kind of doing risky things. But if you start to notice that these risky behaviors or activities are way more dangerous, or they're starting to become self-destructive, like they're recklessly driving or they're using substances, it shows a lack of concern for their personal safety, and you really need to have a conversation with them. Even though we live in a day and age where mental health tends to be talked about a lot more than it was 20 or 30 years ago, emotional indicators tend to be often looked over or said to be, oh, they're just too dramatic. So let's talk about some that you should definitely notice, or that are some indicators that there could be trouble ahead. If someone starts expressing intense hopelessness, like feeling trapped or helpless, or that the future is bleak or not worth looking forward to, those are often really common indicators that someone is going through something. Or if they start to have really intense mood changes, they were extremely depressed and now they're suddenly really calm and happy, it's often a sign that someone has made the decision to attempt suicide. The one emotion that often gets looked over because people don't associate it with suicide is anger or irritability. Not everyone is going to show sadness or despair when they're suicidal. An increase in irritability or rage or uncontrollable anger is often a sign of deep distress and needs to be helped as soon as possible, because these people can either start to increase their risky behaviors because they are so angry, or they may impulsively do something that ends their life due to their anger. Verbal indicators tend to be very black and white, but people still tend to look over them. So if people start talking about death or suicide, making statements like, I wish I were dead, or the world would be better without me, those statements need to be taken seriously. People don't usually just say that for attention. If someone starts to express that they feel like a burden to others, or that their loved ones would be way better off without them, that also needs to be taken very seriously, and you may need to have them elaborate a little bit further to see exactly where their mind is at. Verbal expressions of feeling extreme guilt or worthlessness or despair that they just can't shake are huge red flags, and they should not be looked over and they should not be ignored. Just like with any illness, there are risk factors for suicide. And Those include experiences or conditions that make people more vulnerable. Some risk factors include mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, or it can be trauma and abuse like childhood trauma or grief and loss. Also, substance abuse, alcohol or drug abuse, or a dual diagnosis, which is when you combine a mental illness with drug abuse. Social isolation and loneliness are also huge ones, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. It became a huge reason as to why people started to attempt or think about suicide. But it also goes beyond that because it includes marginalized groups like LGBTQ plus individuals or people with disabilities or minorities. All of these things contribute to isolation, which increase suicide risk. So how can we as a community help those who are thinking about attempting suicide? For starters, we need to create a safe, non-judgmental space where somebody can feel safe speaking about how they're feeling. You want to approach the person in a private, calm setting where they'll feel okay with opening up with you. And don't shy away from direct questions like, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about committing suicide? Being direct shows that you're taking their feelings seriously without making them feel bad for being distressed. Be an active listener. Let them speak openly about their feelings without judgment. Avoid cutting to solutions or dismissing their pain by saying things like, it's not that bad, or you'll be fine. Be mindful of the fact that you're there to listen to understand and not listen to respond. Make sure to validate their feelings. Show them empathy by acknowledging their emotions. Say things like, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, but I'm here to listen. And create a sense of validation and avoid judgmental language. Make sure to paraphrase or repeat what they're saying back to them so that they can see that you're trying to understand. So for example, you can say something like, so from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed and hopeless. Is that right? Make sure that you're offering support and not solutions. You don't want to assume what they need and ask them what would help them in that moment. It could be listening, it could be support of some sort, or it even could be connecting them with a therapist. Don't try to fix any of their problems or offering dumbass cliches like think positive or it will get better. Instead, focus on just being present and offering genuine support. Once they get to a point where you feel like they have gotten most of their emotions out, you definitely want to encourage them to get some professional help. Remind them that talking to a therapist could really help them sort out the feelings that they're feeling, and then offer to help them find somebody. A lot of the times when people are already in this suicidal state of mind, it is very overwhelming to have to also go looking for a therapist or something. So offering them help to do that can often alleviate that overwhelming feeling, which often prevents people from getting the help that they need. So that's just, an extra little help that you can give someone. And if you can even help them by making the appointment for them, that would be even more of a tremendous help. Remind them that there's crisis helplines like 988 where you can text or call. And now they even have a service where if you are hearing impaired, you can go on their website and connect with somebody through video so you can talk to them through there. Now, the work isn't done once this conversation is over. Now, you should definitely be following up, seeing how they're doing. Show them that you care and that you're concerned and that it's ongoing and it's not just you wanted to have that conversation and now you don't care anymore. Keep actively listening, keep showing empathy, and keep offering guidance towards professional help. You can play a vital role in preventing somebody from committing suicide by just proving to them that there is somebody out there that truly cares and will continue to prove that they care. Now, if you're one of those people who's out there contemplating suicide, remember that self-care is the most important thing. And I totally know that self-care is extremely hard to do when you are just not even willing to exist anymore. First and foremost, with all of the fuckery that's going on in the world right now, you definitely need to limit your exposure to negativity. So stop using social media so much. Don't follow accounts that are going to make you upset. Stay informed, but don't dwell on things that are going to keep you in a really negative state of mind. Do not overload yourself on negative news. Do not overload yourself on anything that's just going to heighten your stress and anxiety. It's okay to stay informed and it's okay to know what's going on in the world, but it's not okay to completely engulf yourself in things that you can't find solutions for in your everyday life. Make sure to consistently stay connected with friends, family members, or just anybody that is in your support system. It's super important for your mental health. Isolating yourself just makes all of those negative feelings that you have so much worse. So just make sure that you're responding to text messages when you can, and, try to find groups or activities that align with things that you're interested in. Volunteer or pick up a sport or pick up a creative outlet. Just something that allows you to feel like you belong or you have a purpose. To all my people pleasers out there, learn to set boundaries and manage your stress. Stop overcommitting to things that lead you to burnout. Learn your boundaries and set them and be firm in them. Be conscious of your time and your energy. Make sure you're breaking tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks. Avoid procrastination because it's just going to make everything worse. It's going to help reduce the overwhelming feeling that is accompanied by being super busy all the time. And I know you've heard this a million times, but it actually really does help. And ever since I've implemented these things into my life, it's made my negative thoughts a lot easier to manage. So make sure that you're practicing gratitude daily and you're prioritizing your self-care. So that includes exercising regularly, eating well, getting good sleep. Because physical activity, particularly, has been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, and that is so true. Engaging in meditation and deep breathing or journaling help calm the mind so much. They reduce stress and just improve emotional regulation as a whole. Plus, regularly focusing on mindfulness can increase self-awareness and improve focus. And then practicing gratitude daily has just been such a game changer in my life. Keeping a gratitude journal is such a good resource for the times when you're just not feeling good and you just can't think of anything positive to change your negative thoughts with. You'll have a huge notebook or even a couple pages in a notebook with a bunch of things you're grateful for. It serves as such an instant reminder that life may be bad, but it's not always bad. And always remember to seek help when you need it. If you're feeling like your stress or anxiety or depression are just too much for you to handle, seek a therapist, look for a counselor, or even look for a support group. All you need is a little bit of guidance, and remember that professional help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. There's also a ton of mental health and wellness apps out there. I've tried an insane amount of them. I have posted a couple of them on previous episodes. I will post more on my social media. I really think these apps are great. There's a lot of them that have meditations. There's a lot of them that have CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. They have mood trackers. And there are a lot of apps that do offer therapy or additional support and a ton of resources. So definitely look into some mental health apps if you're more into that type of thing. Remember that suicide prevention isn't just the responsibility of professionals. Each of us have a role to play in saving lives. Whether it's sharing information or just educating ourselves or supporting a friend in need, tiny actions have big impacts. And I encourage you to get involved and take part in suicide prevention even after September. You can do that by sharing resources like the crisis hotline 988 or educating your community about the warning signs or how they can respond to somebody who is suicidal. You can join or you can support organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention or the Trevor Project. These groups provide a lot of support and resources, and you can even make a small donation or volunteer your time, and it'll make a huge difference. You can attend walks or events. Many organizations hold events like the Out of the Darkness walks. They raise awareness and funds for suicide prevention, so participating can help spread that message. By spreading knowledge and supporting all of these organizations or just people that work in the field contributes to creating a society where nobody's going to feel alone in their struggles, and together as a society we can prevent more suicides. To wrap up this episode, I want to remind all of you that you were the little sperm that won. Life is fucking hard, beyond difficult at times, full of traumatic moments, and sometimes it seems to consistently go downhill before you even see a sign of things starting to go up. It's not fair, and it's probably something we will never understand, why living things have to suffer so much. But we can redirect that thought process with, will we ever understand why such good things happen to us out of nowhere? The fucking universe doesn't explain a damn thing. We are all experiencing being alive for the first time in this time period. None of us know what we're doing, but we do know one thing. We are all the little sperm that won. You are here for a reason. You make people smile. You're important to someone, even if it's the bird outside that waits for you to wake up so it can eat. You don't exist by chance. None of this is by chance. Be there for people and don't turn your back on someone when things get hard for them. Check up on people more often and tell them that you love them and make it weird. If you're going through it right now and you don't feel like there's an escape from your brain, please reach out. If you don't have anyone, reach out to me. I have all of my social media handles in the description of this episode for anyone to want to reach out. And there are resources out there. There's people who want to help you. There's a light at the end of the pitch black tunnel, I promise. You're just too deep in the tunnel to see it. But please keep going. I'm going to be providing a link to my link tree in the description of this episode. It has all of my social medias, so if you want to go ahead and reach out to me, or you just want to get some more resources or more information on mental health, go ahead and follow me on there. Along with my social media links, I will be providing a link to a form where if you feel like sharing your experiences with suicide, you can go ahead and do that anonymously. If you want to leave your name, you can, but it is automatically anonymous. So if you feel like sharing your experiences, I will provide that as well. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope that you learn something or you can take something from this podcast that will either help yourself or somebody in your life that is unfortunately suffering with suicidal ideation. Again, please feel free to reach out to me If you don't feel comfortable talking to anybody in your life, or if you need any resources, or if you have any questions, or if you just want to discuss something about suicide. I hope you guys had a wonderful September, and I hope you have an even better October. Thank you so much for listening to Mental Magic, and we'll talk soon.